Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I hope you enjoy what you see, and you will like and subscribe and hit that notification bell that's right down here so that you'll see my upcoming content. It's early autumn, and I've come to the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area. This particular part of this fairly large park is on the Jersey side of the Delaware River, which is right behind me, the upper Delaware River. It's very quiet. It's about actually just over 8 o'clock in the morning, and so the sun's been up for an hour. I've set up for basically what I'm looking to do today is to kind of catch some autumn foliage and some nice water shots. And I've actually, my first composition, which I'm already set up for, is basically catching some reflections of the Delaware River and of the foliage on the other side, which I believe are beech trees, and yeah, I believe they're beech trees. In any case, the colors are really just starting to turn here. In some cases, though, the leaves are already fallen, and yeah, duck hunters. There was some duck hunters on the river here, just leaving as I showed up. So there may be a lot of that, and I'll have to be careful to stay on the trail so that I don't get shot or mistaken for a deer or something, because there are deer about also. In any case, I'm going to take this first shot. It's catching the reflection of the foliage over the water. I've got my 70-200 lens on here, f10, ISO 100, and 1/25 of a second. So let's take this first shot, and we'll see what we wind up with. And then I'm going to go further up the trail. Actually, even before going up the trail, I have another composition in mind that's actually right behind the camera. So as I'll turn that around, you'll see what I'm looking at. So my composition here is based on the reflections of really those two kind of dead looking trees that are right here. They've already lost a lot of foliage, but they're important to try to anchor the composition, because you don't really want to just have just a lot of leaves in the shot like this. You want to have something to rest your eye on, something to kind of focus on. So basically what I am focusing on is literally on those the bare trees, specifically the one on the right, but at f10 I'm going to get them both sharp, and we're going to take the shot with my other camera, and you'll see the final composition after editing right after this. Before I take that shot that I just mentioned before, which is still behind me as I speak, I'm going to take another shot of another group of trees on the other side of the river. Actually, I may wind up taking a vertical pano just to get more of the trees and not include the sky. But basically, I'm looking at this bank of trees that's right across here. You can see the glorious colors going from green to orange and some red of the trees across there, and also some reflections. So I think I am going to make a vertical pano out of this with the 70-200 on my 5D Mark IV, and you'll see the results right after this. Now I'm going to take the shot of the scene that was behind where I was shooting here. Basically, you have the trail that led down to the shore of the river, and I think it kind of makes a nice meandering path through the wood with these flowering shrubs over here and the overhanging branch over here, which I think kind of makes a nice, interesting composition. So it's simple. It's a little, I won't say cliche, but I like it. So I'm going to take a shot of it, and then after that, I'm going to go up the trail a little bit uphill and see what I can find up there. I've never been to this location before, so I don't have a lot of expectations specifically. I'm just hoping that I find nice composition that will suit my eye and hopefully make a good image. So, as you can see, I've swapped out my 70-200 lens for my 16-35. My settings right now are ISO 100, f10, f9, and 1/10 of a second. I'm going to use my 2-second timer. There's virtually no wind, so I'm not really worrying too much about movement. In fact, there's no wind at all, so nothing is moving. I could focus stack this just because of the fact of no wind. In fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. My initial thought was to just use one exposure, but since there is no wind and no foliage is moving, I should be able to get away with focus stacking this. So I want to take probably about 3 exposures focusing first on the near plants, then mid-ground, then to the back of the path as far as I can see. And we'll see what happens. All right, so first image, I will just reset my focus manually, as is my preference. And then trigger 2-second exposure. And repeat the other couple of times, and the final image is coming up here. So I've come up a little bit further up the path now, and this path happens to run alongside this creek. And you can see there's a series of cascades going uphill, as I'm sure there will be hopefully more compositions similar to this one on the way up. But this particular spot has a little bit of everything. It's got mossy rocks, it's got fallen leaves, it's got some nice background interest with the branch hanging over there, and with some trees and woods in the background. So I've got myself set up for a vertical composition. Since the light is very much in the shade, I'm getting a shutter speed with f11 at 0.8 seconds, which is going to be good to slow down the cascade here. In fact, I'll probably mix in a faster exposure just to get a little bit more detail in the lower part of the cascade here. Oh, the other thing I have on here is a polarizing filter, because I want to take some, but not necessarily all of the reflection out. I mean, if I take it all out, you'll just have black water. On the other hand, there are some leaves under the water that I want to be able to at least partially reveal. So I've got the polarizer turned all the way, but not completely all the way, to cut most of, but not all of the glare out. And I'm going to focus stack this, starting from the bottom here. I'll probably take at least 3 exposures, maybe up to 5, to get from back to front or front to back in sharp focus. All right, so let me take the first exposure of several, and you will see the final result shortly. I'm going to put in my 2-second timer on, then just check focus on my first area. Again, manually focusing. This should be very nice. All right, here we go. Exposure number 1. More to come. And final shot coming up right here. The trail comes to an end here. This being the entrance of an old copper mine. As you can see, it's gated closed to the public for obvious safety reasons. But I'm going to look around here to see if I can maybe find some minimalist compositions using maybe the rocks where they've been cut away to make the entrance. The creek is still right behind to the camera here, so I might find if I can get down there, because since there's no trail, it's going to be a little sketchy. But I'm going to see if I can find another couple of compositions, maybe look at some of the trees, see what patterns there are. When it comes to woodland photography, it's about finding interesting light, something to focus on. And, I don't want to use the cliche of override of chaos, but it's kind of what it is. You want to find some interesting subject, something to draw your eye, but also something to build composition around what that thing is, whether it be a waterfall, a tree, a plant, or something. So I'm going to take a little time, walk around here, and see what's up. I think I found something. I want to take a shot of this leaf against the ferns here with the rocks. Basically, you have kind of a mixture of textures and colors. I'm probably going to have to hand hold this, and I'm going to use the the R6 that I'm filming on right now, I'm going to use this to actually take the exposure and hand hold it. And the reason being for that is that my tripod that I have mounted, that I've been using for the R6, is not tall enough to reach this rock. And even my other tripod isn't quite tall enough, so I'm going to hand hold it. I'm going to, hopefully this will allow my image stabilization to kick in and really get a nice sharp image. And we'll see what happens. I'm actually going to put the polarizer on right now, because without the polarizer I'm getting at f11 1/60th of a second at ISO. Actually I have ISO, well, it's auto ISO, I'm not quite sure what the ISO is. When I set this manually on the photo mode, I'm going to try and get the same settings with the f11 and 1/60th, whatever ISO allows me to get that shutter speed, and we'll see what happens. It turned out I would need an ISO of 1000 to get a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second, but the R6 allowed me to handhold overhead at 1/13th of a second with an ISO of 200, and that really surprised and pleased me. It said a lot about the camera's IBIS. So this video is going to have some bonus footage. First of all, as I was leaving or about to leave the copper mine, the sun cleared the top of the hill and showing some beautiful backlight on the trees at the top of the hill and the trunk. So I whipped out, without videoing it, but you'll see it at the end of this the video here. I whipped out the camera, put out the 70-200 f4 with a 1.4s extender. I don't remember the settings off the top of my head, but you'll see that displayed next to with the resulting shot also. I'm going to be very happy with it. Actually, I took several while I was up there. Then coming back down the trail, I come across these beautiful purple asters. So I've got the 105 millimeter macro lens on the camera now, and as soon as the wind dies down a little bit, because since the sun is now up, the breeze has picked up and it's making the flowers vibrate. So I got to wait for it to be almost absolutely still before triggering the shot with my remote shutter, remote trigger I should say. So after this, I'm going to go get something to eat. Then I'm going to scout around this National Recreation Center here, see if I can find some more composition. So hopefully I'll have enough footage and enough images to put out a second video. And if so, and if you subscribe to me and see and click that like button, you'll see that upcoming. So thanks again. Thanks for joining me. Hope you enjoyed this, and see you next time. Bye.